From TRICHOMES.com, I'm Jarod Duggins, and this is the Careers in Cannabis podcast. On this show, we speak with staffing agencies, cannabis companies, and seasoned traditional market executives in order to obtain a better grasp of the current employment climate and what we might be able to expect of our burgeoning cannabis industry. On today's episode of Careers in Cannabis, we visit with Liesl Bernard, founder of Cannabis team and Cannabis Temp. During the conversation, Liesl and I discussed the differences between both companies, how her unique experiences in life led her to staffing, and how that turned into a career in cannabis. If you're looking for a new job or a way to transition from another industry into cannabis, this is an episode that you'll be glad you listened to. Let's get to it. And Liesl, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Wanted to do a personal check-in with you. I know as per our conversation leading into this, you're in San Diego, but would you let the guests know about your personal situation as we're coming out of COVID here and how the company's doing down there in San Diego?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, this is a big transition for a lot of companies, but I am super proud of my team and how we've adjusted and navigated through the COVID period. We now have offices in San Diego, Chicago, and Miami. And, we've all started working virtually and, we've been able to serve our clients very well in finding them talent and also on a temp basis. Our temp business actually grew throughout the COVID period. And we've all been doing remote work. So we're interviewing people remotely, dealing with our clients remotely. But it just shows you what you can do when you're willing to pivot and, work very closely as a team. So it actually has been a great experience for our company.
Yeah, it's showing the new emerging cannabis industry, but the corporate world, the traditional corporate world, what can actually be done remotely. So it's a very interesting time in the way of staffing, I'd say, and really excited to have you on the show to discuss that. I wanted to dig in a little bit with how you got into staffing, recruiting, and where you started and where that journey took you. How did you get to cannabis?
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and looking back, things just sort of fell into place and got me to where we are today. But I started my career actually in public accounting. I'm a CPA, worked for one of the big four public accounting firms for a number of years, and I always felt that my passion was people and communications, and really enjoyed working with people, and probably got in trouble a lot for talking too much in an auditing function. I actually went to a staffing firm after leaving public accounting to find a job in the private accounting sector. And while I was at the staffing firm, they interviewed me and they said, "You're a CPA, but you're a very unusual CPA. You're a CPA with a personality and you're actually fun to talk to. How would you feel about becoming a recruiter for the accounting industry?" I jumped at the opportunity, obviously took a big risk to pivot from being a CPA to being a recruiter for finance and accounting. But within my first year, I was the number one producer and really loved staffing ever since. So I've had multiple opportunities to work in other parts of the world in recruiting. I joined one of the biggest staffing firms in the world, and I started their Australian operation back in 2000, recruited in technology for a long time. Also lived in Singapore, worked there for a while, and then managed the operations for this staffing firm in Hawaii for 8 years prior to coming back to the mainland, where I ran a part of their executive search firm on the West Coast. So, staffing took me all around the world. I had some incredible opportunities to work in diverse cultures and industries that were new to me at the time. And then obviously working in Hawaii for 8 years, it's such a multicultural environment that I think that taught me a lot about how to really read people, read companies' culture, and really have the art of making that culture fit, correctly in most cases. So about 4 years ago, I went to a cannabis conference and really thought through, where this industry is going to go. I was always very passionate about alternative health products, and cannabis always fascinated me. And, a light bulb went off in my head is that, there's going to be a real need for talent in this industry. So I left a very secure corporate job, was with my company for almost 20 years prior, and took all my savings and started this company, Cannabis team. So again, it was a long, fascinating journey, but it really all came together about 4 years ago, and here we are now with 3 offices and continually looking to expand.
That's an amazing story, and I think one that can probably resonate with a lot of the people who are going to be entering the cannabis industry, maybe even on a first time basis, coming over from a different industry. And, you brought up the fact that you were a trained CPA, and someone saw that your experience as a CPA would be fitting to your role as a recruiter. And then that led segue to your seeing that there was need in the cannabis industry. And ultimately, right now, what we're seeing is an industry that's coming of age, that's needing skills and experience developed from outside or traditional industries to come to us and help stabilize our efforts. So really, the fact is you're actually someone who has done and made the transition from a traditional job market, and maybe even a different set of expertise than when you started with recruitment, and turn that into something that you made your niche here in cannabis. And well, that's just fantastic. And for our listeners, that's one of the ways to get in here is to carry that entrepreneurial spirit in the background of which you have from another industry and turn it into something like Liesl and her partners did. But they've been very successful, and they've become part of the fabric here of the cannabis industry. I remember running into them at a booth roughly 4 years ago at the MJ BizCon, and they've been there ever since and been placing jobs all over the industry. And actually, that brings me to the next question, Liesl, is as we're coming out of this last few months and emerging from our homes, from being socially distanced and what is being dubbed as the new norm. I mean, there's some resurgence talk, there's this and that, but realistically, the economy is coming back alive. Jobs are resurging themselves. And are you seeing anything available in the cannabis industry that maybe wasn't there before? Or what are you seeing as far as your offerings and what Cannabis team has to offer?
Gosh, that's a big question, but I think in general, the industry actually grew throughout the COVID period. I think the fact that cannabis is still federally legal, but was deemed essential, in most states throughout this period was a big win for the cannabis industry, and I think it really normalized and destigmatized, what was left of that over the last few months. And, I think we saw some consolidation of cannabis companies. A lot of companies did have to do some layoffs, but I think it also clarified who the players are in the industry and the ones that are staying and the ones that continue to grow throughout this time. A lot of our clients ended up hiring additional staff to deal with the increased retail demand they saw in their dispensaries. And we even made some very significant executive placements during COVID, which I felt was really promising and exciting. So I think the whole COVID situation really helped the cannabis industry.
Yeah, I've been seeing out there in social media and normal media, from illegal to essential practically overnight. And while it's been more of a lifelong journey for myself and a longer journey for people like yourself and everyone who's joined in the battle along the way, whether it was 20 years ago or longer or last year, it's something as to where there was a fast forward button hit. And I believe unanimously we can all kind of nod our heads to that, is what COVID did for the cannabis industry. Well, the dual-edged nature of having a global pandemic was that actually it brought a little bit of legitimacy to our industry. And well, within that, depending upon which perspective you're looking at, some of the people that run our states and our government probably saw an additional stream of revenue available, of which there's so many dwindling and there's so much new cash being printed that, hey, we need all we can get right now. So whether it's for the good of health and wellness and the medical benefits of which so many states have adopted, or the cash stream revenues of which the states themselves need so desperately, just really glad that we're here right now because, I think we're estimating roughly 1.5 million jobs in the recreational market here in the U.S., of which just happens to coincide with the additional 1.5 million jobless claims that just happened over the last week, as cited by the New York Post, bringing the jobless claims to a total of 44 million total as of today, 8 hours ago, today being June 11th. So, right now we have 1.5 million jobs to displace here on a national level. But within that, are you dealing mostly with plant touching jobs? Are you dealing with ancillary, and are you dealing mostly with the licensed cannabis market versus, I guess, the hemp markets?
We play in the whole market. So we work with companies that are, pure cannabis, THC companies, CBD, and also hemp. And then we also service companies that are ancillary to the industry. So we are a executive search and staffing firm that focuses just on cannabis and the related industries around that. We work in all verticals, from all the way from cultivation to extraction, testing, manufacturing, distribution, retail, and then we also do a lot of executive placements in the cannabis industry. And so, we really cover the whole market.
Well, and that's great for our listeners to know, because I do believe within the numbers presented is that 1.5 million jobs available in the recreational market is just that. I believe that's a national number for the recreational cannabis market. I don't believe that takes into account a lot of the medical offerings and or the hemp or CBD offerings themselves. So would you say that there's probably even more potential than 1.5 million jobs in the US surrounding cannabis as a general vertical?
Yes, definitely. I think if you include all of the ancillary and related industries like hemp and CBD, for sure. I think it's so exciting to be in an industry today, especially where the world economy is, to be in an industry that is still growing. And, it's just, I feel very blessed to work in this industry. And it also is helping so many people. So there's definitely an aspect to it that really feels good about working in the cannabis industry.
Definitely. And for me, it's nice to have a little justification come after a little bit of full circle. We hate to say we told you so, but until the research was there, we couldn't actually even say that. So once the research presents itself, it'll be nice to have some of this anecdotal evidence amount to something. I wanted to clarify. Earlier, we spoke about that the original company that you founded was Cannabiz Team. And over the time period there was a company called Cannabiz Temp, or a subsidiary that was formed. Can you describe the difference between the two?
Yes, absolutely. So Cannabis Team was the company that we founded 4 years ago. And initially, we just focused on executive search and recruiting on a contingency basis. And again, we cover all verticals within the industry. But as we continue to grow, a lot of our clients showed a need for having people on an on-demand basis. So just hiring someone for a week, or even to cover for a couple of days, or to do a longer term specialized project, but not having the need to hire someone full time and put them on their salary. So we started Cannabis Temp a little over a year ago, and work in most of the states now that are legal, and can place talent all the way, again, from very entry level positions on an hourly basis to very specialized consulting talent on a contract or project basis. So on-demand staffing for the cannabis industry. But I think the benefit for cannabis companies to use our temp or consulting service is that these people stay on our payroll. So our clients don't have to come up with putting them on their payroll, offering them benefits, dealing with workers' comp, and all the administrative costs that go with hiring someone. They can just say, hey, we need a body, we need a specialist for a period of time, and they show up and they do their job, and then they're done. So it's a clean expense for a lot of these cannabis companies.
Ooh, that's going to be enticing to a lot of the companies who are in the growth phase and scaling up, because a lot of times it's tough to find that right fit, let alone a perfect fit. And when it comes down to that, is being able to find Cannabiz Team or Cannabiz Temp, is that through the same link? Where can our listeners find you or find the information, most recent postings?
It's all under the same website. It's Cannabiz Team, Cannabiz with a Z, team.com. And you can access our temp services through that website as well as executive search and the direct hire. So it sort of tells you, all about our company from that website.
Perfect. Well, I know that our listeners are going to, whether they're looking for a job or actually a company looking to scale a bit, Cannabiz Team now presents an opportunity of which I'm not sure anybody else is offering out there. It's learning more and more about the opportunities surrounding the careers in cannabis right now through this podcast. But I do believe that's a pretty unique offering to what's currently available through other staffing and recruiting agencies. So kudos for getting that online and meeting the demands of the industry.
Thank you.
And do you have anything of note or anything you'd like to submit to our audience as to on the horizon for Cannabiz Team or Cannabiz Temp that you'd like to draw awareness to?
I think there's a couple of things that may be of interest to people that are listening. We issued our salary guide a couple of months ago, and that salary guide highlights 52, positions that we placed very often within the cannabis industry, and we've started collecting data on those positions that we placed and starting to track how salaries are changing year over year in the cannabis industry. And I think what's exciting to see in that salary guide is that, when we first started, a lot of people had to take a pay cut to enter the cannabis industry. But, as the industry started maturing and it became more competitive, we're now seeing salaries that are very much in line with other industries for similar positions, and in some cases are even a little bit higher. So that may be of interest to a lot of people that are listening to download our salary guide and to look at that. And there's also some information on there on, what the trends are in the industry and where we see the industry going. And it also has an index for changing, salary ranges based on location within the US, because obviously, some cities are more expensive to live in and salaries get adjusted accordingly, in those cities. So that may be useful, and it can be downloaded from our website. And I can maybe send you the link for that as well if you wanted to post that with the podcast. But that's great to look at. And I think for anyone that's interested in the cannabis industry, there's probably more opportunities in the industry than you realize. We take a lot of talent from other industries and help people make that transition into the cannabis industry, and from corporate environments into the cannabis industry. And the cannabis industry is really hungry for educated, focused, and entrepreneurial type individuals that want to contribute to the growth of this incredible place and time that we're at.
It is definitely going to take a diverse range of backgrounds and experience to help us stabilize this industry and bring it to what it should become in the future. So definitely want to make the information available to as many people as possible so that they know that there might be an opportunity where they didn't think there was before. So we definitely will include a link to the guide in our comments or the bio, as it may be, for whichever platform we're on. It'll definitely also be on our website. And the salary guide sounds like a great place to start for anyone trying to map their future endeavors in the cannabis industry as they're coming in, whether it be cold turkey or mapping their career choices as they move up the charts and gain an experience within the cannabis industry, because each new position, each new job offers a fresh perspective on really a pretty darn multifaceted vertical here within cannabis. So there's a lot of emerging job titles and experiences needed. So I definitely thank you for putting that together. The salary guide is, again, something that is a pretty unique offering to the Cannabiz team. And I want to make sure that our listeners understand that, it's a great place to go grab some insights that is tracked data over a certain period of time here that's relevant to the industry as it's been growing. So that's great insights, Liesl.
Thank you.
And with that, I definitely want to thank you for, again, being on the show and coming in and sharing with myself and our audience what Cannabiz team has to offer and what you guys are bringing to the industry, and how through Cannabiz team someone else can start their career in the cannabis industry. So again, thanks, Liesl, for coming on the show, and I hope to check in with you soon.
Thanks so much. It was such a pleasure to speak with you.
My pleasure. Thank you. You can follow our series, Careers in Cannabis, as well as more great shows like this one at TRICHOMES.com. If you're a member of the cannabis community and you have a story you want to share with us, please reach out. You can reach the show via emailing careersincannabis@trichomes.com. Please take a second to subscribe to the podcast and write a review. It really helps others find the show. You can also join in the discussion with industry insiders by visiting trichomes.com and following us on all social media. For trichomes.com, I'm Jarod Duggins. Be well, and thank you for listening.